Welcome back to episode 26 of the Reading, Minnesota 4X Mega Beef Farm. In today's episode, we're heading back out into the fields as we continue working through our year 2 spring planting season. Now, in the last episode, we officially kicked things off for year 2, and we've got a pretty big workload ahead of us this year. Right now, we're farming a total of 570 acres, all of which needs to be planted and prepared for the upcoming harvest season. We've already got our 200-acre winter wheat field planted from the fall of year 1. That field surrounds our main farmyard and is already off to a great start this season. So that leaves us with another 370 acres of ground that we need to get planted this spring. To get started, we pulled out both of our John Deere N 540 air seeders, and we've been running them with our John Deere 8960 and the New Holland TJ 500. So far, this has been a really solid setup. Both tractors are handling the seeders extremely well, and it's proven to be a very efficient combination for covering ground on these fields. The first field we started in was Field 288, which is a 100-acre field located just across the road from the local co-op. Once we got out there, I set up the John Deere 8960 on courseplay, so a hired worker could take over seeding duties, while I jumped into the New Holland TJ 500 and started seeding alongside it. For this field, I decided to go with oats. Last year, this field had corn planted in it, so we wanted to start getting a proper crop rotation going, and oats felt like a great fit. Not only will we be able to harvest the grain later in the year, but we'll also get straw from the oats, which we can bale and use or sell. So overall, it should turn into a pretty profitable field for us. We made some really solid progress on this field in the last episode. At this point, we've already managed to plant well over half of the field, so we're in a great position, but there are still a few acres left to finish before we can officially wrap things up here. So to kick things off today, I'll be jumping into the John Deere 8960, getting it fired back up and re-engaged on courseplay. Once that tractor is up and running again, I'll hop back into the New Holland TJ 500 and continue seeding myself. With both seeders running, it shouldn't take too long to knock out the remaining passes. We just got a few more up and down passes left, followed by the headlands, and that should be enough to get this field fully planted. We may need to refill the seeders one more time before we finish, but we've got our Kenworth T800 sitting on the edge of the field with the Wilson grain trailer fully loaded with seed and fertilizer. So we're all set if we need to top things up. Once we get this field wrapped up, we'll fold up both seeders and send them back to the farm. I'll jump into the Kenworth and haul the trailer back myself. And once we get back to the yard, we'll head over to our foremost hopper bins to unload any remaining seed and fertilizer from the trailer. After everything is emptied out and stored, I'll get the Wilson grain trailer parked away in the shed, and then we'll switch things over to our Chandler 24 rear discharge tender trailer. We'll fill that up with whatever seed we have left, so we're ready to move straight into the next field. At that point, we'll also get both of our seeding tractors cleaned up and parked away as we start transitioning into the next phase of planting for today. Now, over on the northeast side of the map, we've got Field 31, which is one of our biggest fields at just over 200 acres. Last year, this field was planted with corn, so this time around we're switching things up and planting soybeans, which will actually be the first soybean crop we've grown here on the Reading, Minnesota Mega Beef Farm. To handle that, I'll be firing up our Challenger MT867 and the John Deere 8345R, and we'll be hooking both of those tractors up to our 224-row John Deere DB60 planters. Once everything is hooked up, we'll send both tractors out to Field 31. While they're making their way over, I'll jump back into the Kenworth T800 and make a run over to the local co-op to finish filling up our Chandler tender trailer with seed. Then we'll meet both planters out at the field, get everything topped up, and begin planting this massive field with soybeans. So we got a full day ahead of us as we continue working through our year 2 planting season, and there's a lot of ground to cover. Let's fire up the engines and see how many acres we can get planted today. If you're looking forward to this new mega farm series on Reading, Minnesota 4X map, please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Well, it looks like we didn't quite have enough seed left in the John Deere 8960 to get this field completely wrapped up. We're really close, but just sure enough that we're going to need one more quick refill to finish things off properly. So what I'm going to do here is jump over into the 8960, get turned around, and bring it back over to our Kenworth T800 so we can top it up with a bit more seed. Once we've got that taken care of, we'll head right back out and continue working on these final headland passes. Now the New Holland TJ 500 still has a decent amount of seed left in it, and I'm thinking it should just have enough to get through the rest of this field. So instead of fully refilling both machines, I'm going to roll the dice a little bit here and just give the 8960 a partial refill, just enough to cover what we've got left. From there, we'll get both seeders back out into the field and start knocking out these last few passes. We're really down to the final stretch now, so it shouldn't take long at all. Now, if I do end up running out of seed in the TJ 500 before we finish, we should still have enough seed on board the 8960 to cover the remaining ground and get this field fully planted. So either way, we should be in good shape to wrap this up without too much extra running around. Once we've got this field officially finished, that's going to be it for our first field of year 2 spring planting. At that point, we'll fold everything up, send both seeders back to the farm, and start shifting our focus over to the next big job, soybean planting. So let's get this 8,960 topped up, get back out there, and finish off these final passes. There we go. Just like that, we've got our first field fully seeded, wrapping up over 100 acres of oats here for year 2. That feels good to get that first field officially checked off the list, and everything went really smooth getting through it. At this point, I've already sent all of our seeding equipment back to the farm. And now I'll be jumping into the Kenworth T800 to haul our Wilson grain trailer back as well, so we can take care of the rest of the cleanup. Once we get back to the farmyard, the first thing I'll do is head over to our hopper bins and get all of the remaining seed and fertilizer unloaded out of the trailer. That way we can get everything stored properly and keep things organized as we transition into the next part of our planting operation. After everything is transferred into the bins, I'll go ahead and swap out the Wilson grain trailer for our Chandler tender trailer. Then we'll take that seed we just unloaded and load it right back up into the tender, so we've got everything ready to go for the next field. From there, we'll shift our focus over to cleaning up equipment. I'll grab our John Deere 8960 and the New Holland TJ 500, get both tractors washed up after the work they just put in, and then we'll get both of the air seeders and tractors parked back in the sheds. That'll officially wrap things up for our seeding setup. After that, it's time to switch things over to planting. I'll fire up our Challenger MT867 and the John Deere 8345R and get both of those tractors hooked up to our John Deere DB60 planters. Once everything is hooked up and ready, I'll send both tractors out on the road using auto drive, making their way over to field 31. While they're heading over, I'll jump back into the Kenworth T800 and start making my way out there as well. But before we get to the field, we'll make a quick stop at the local co-op. We'll top off our tender trailer with seed, so we're fully loaded and ready to go. And then from there, we'll head over to field 31, get everything set up, and officially kick off our first soybean planting here on the Redding, Minnesota Mega Beef Farm. So let's get everything back to the yard, get cleaned up, and start making our way to the next field. Alright, we're just about pulling up to field 31 now, and by the looks of it, both of our planters have already made it over here and are ready to go. Everything is coming together pretty nicely timing-wise, so we should be able to get this operation up and running without too much delay. So first things first, I'm going to bring our Kenworth T800 into the field and get the Chandler tender trailer positioned in a good spot so we can start refilling our planters. I'll get it parked along the edge of the field where it's easy to access, and from there we can begin topping everything off. Once it's set, I'll hop into each of our tractors one by one and pull both John Deere DB60 planters underneath the auger so we can get them fully loaded up with fresh seed. We want to make sure both planters are completely topped off before we get started, just so we can minimize any downtime once we're out in the field. After both planters are filled and ready to go, I'll jump into the John Deere 8345R and get a coarse blade course created for this field. That'll allow a worker to take over in that tractor while I stay hands-on and do the planting myself in the Challenger MT867. Once the course is set, I'll get the 8345R lined up on the first waypoint, get everything dialed in, and then I'll pull the Challenger right alongside it so we can start working this field together. From there, we'll officially kick off planting on this 200-plus acre field, putting in our very first crop of soybeans here on the Redding, Minnesota Mega Beef Farm. And on top of that, we're also running the row crop system mod in this series, so this is going to look really good once we get going. Each row we plant will follow the exact direction of the planter, which adds a ton of realism and really makes a difference when you're working fields of this size. So everything is lined up, the equipment is ready, and we're all set to get started. Let's fire things up and see how much of this massive field we can get planted. Well, guys, that is going to wrap things up for today's episode here on the Reading, Minnesota 4X Mega Beef Farm. We made some really solid progress today, getting our first field fully planted with oats, and then making our way over here to field 31, where we've already knocked out a good chunk of this 200-plus acre soybean field. Everything is running really smoothly so far, and it's great to see this operation starting to come together here in year 2. Next episode, we'll be back out here finishing up the rest of this field and getting all of our soybeans fully planted. And once that's done, it'll be time to start shifting our focus over to the next big step, corn planting. Right now, we've only got about a 70-acre field set aside for corn, and realistically, that's just not going to be enough to keep up with feeding all of our cattle. So we're going to need to start looking at expanding that. At the moment, we've got just over $1 million in the bank, so we've got a few options on the table. We could look at purchasing some additional land, or possibly even leasing some ground to give us the extra acres we're going to need moving forward. So that's definitely something we'll start figuring out very soon. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and as always, I really appreciate all the support. I'll see you guys in the next one.